Welcome everyone to our program tonight, how we are managing with COVID-19 in closed environments. This will be an evening of passing the baton among a great group of women who are sitting up here to share with us how they are managing in different contexts to do healthy, wonderful in-person gatherings during this crazy time of COVID-19. I'd like to turn the microphone over now to Dr. Mary Ann McGee, who is the MC for tonight. Mary Ann, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I want you to know this is live on Facebook, and I know there are a lot of people watching on Facebook, including Hackers Way, all the citizens, and possibly the Capiellos. So let me introduce to you our panel. We have two students. We have a manager of a ranch on the North Fork that did open last year. We have a teacher, coach, and we have the superintendent, Monty. So each person will be given 5 to 7 minutes or less to talk about some questions that we posed to them concerning COVID in these closed environments. And quite honestly, Cody is a model for dealing with COVID in a closed environment. Half the country, schools are closed down, and we are negotiating. And, you know, last year, ranches around town, around our country, shut down, but Rimrock Ranch didn't, and they figured it out. And so we want to know how they figured it out and take all their tips. Thank you. We're going to start on this end with Maggie Capiello.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I did have lots of index cards prepared initially for today. However, those are on my desk. But I got it all up here. I feel definitely my generation, I'm sure Fiona can also attest to this. As a student during COVID-19, it was a big struggle. A big struggle because in the middle of my junior year, you know, I'm expecting to do a lot of different things and go to conventions and competitions for Skills USA and such, take the ACT, travel during the summer, start my job. And then of course, as we know, in March, the world shut down. The week before everything shut down, I was actually attending a concert in Denver, Colorado, amazingly, which, looking back on that now, doesn't even seem like a remote possibility. Dealing with isolation, especially just me and my parents in our house, was very difficult. Both my parents are both teachers. My mom teaches elementary school, my father teaches high school, and of course I'm a high school student. We eventually entered into a pattern. Every day. We'd all go to our respective places and we just work. All in our own timelines. We'd convene, usually for lunch, and then go do more work. I know a lot of people struggled with motivation during the pandemic, especially when it has to do with work and schoolwork and assignments. But something very unique that my family struggled with was turning it off. When you work, relax, and sleep, and do everything in the same environment, it's hard to differentiate between those groups. Me and my father especially struggle with anxiety in these type of situations when we can't get out and see people and just explore more. Getting in a rut was definitely not ideal, but we had no other way of dealing with the pandemic at the time. So of course, once May rolled around and we were all done with our classes, it was probably one of the happiest days we had when I finally came upstairs and said, "Finished my last assignment," and we were all cheered. We're like, yes! So that was a pretty great moment for my family, of course. But then we had to navigate summertime, which was a whole different ballgame, because we always go see my grandparents in Ohio. We go take trips and hike all around and everything. Of course, we were still able to hike and fish, but those trips were different. We did not travel in June, except to go see my grandparents, but of course we had to isolate ourselves, wear our masks, and stay possible when traveling in order to see them. But even that trip was different because I'd never traveled in a pandemic before, as have any of us. It was a very different experience. And then when I returned home, I had to, of course, navigate work. I work in the food industry, and of course, as many of us know, that has been a very hard-hit industry during this pandemic. But this business that I work at, 307 Pizza, we were able to stay open and still safely serve customers all summer long and through the fall. Of course, many precautions had to be taken. I spent my summer with my hands in lots of bleach water, I have to say. Hands are still kind of dry from that and everything. And we wore masks and we constantly wiped down because that's how important it was to us to stay open during the pandemic. People need normalcy during pandemics like this. You know, we served a concert in the parks, we had our weekly gig at Cody Coffee Company, because people need that sort of pattern that still makes them feel like they're in real life. And I know, for one, going to work a couple times a week helped me forget for a second that we were in a global pandemic and that I would have to navigate my senior year and probably graduate in a global pandemic. Because as humans, we crave normalcy like that. We need those type of patterns. And then entering my senior year of high school, right now, it's definitely been different. I can't really remember a time where we didn't wear masks, and it's strange to think about. But an in-person instruction has been unbelievably beneficial. I have a mix of both online and in-person classes, but I find this is a much easier way to turn it off and be able to sleep in my bedroom without looking at my laptop saying, I should do that assignment, shouldn't I? And so I just feel this overall COVID experience has definitely changed my outlook on life and how important it is to take time and understand what I need as a person, especially during such unprecedented times. I know we've all heard that phrase over and over again. But I understand now that I need, and many of us need, that normalcy. And any way we can establish that safely should be definitely taken into account, because I know that definitely was very beneficial to me and my family. But thank you guys so much for hearing what I have to say, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. That was just tremendous. Thank you. Because people need to hear what teenagers are going through. And I would like to have a 4-year-old here, but you know. And this is Fiona Gallagher.
Hello, as Mary Ann said, my name is Fiona Gallagher, and I'm a senior at Cody High School. Just like Maggie, I'm trying to navigate my way through my senior year during a pandemic. But I would like to share with you my story and my experiences through this pandemic. On March 15th, 2020, I received the news that school was going to be shut down for 2 weeks due to a widespread virus called the coronavirus, meaning no school, no dance, no seeing friends, no work, and being stuck in my house for 2 weeks with my family. On that same day, I also received the news that the dance convention I attended every other year in every other year in California would be canceled. It was planned for April 3rd, 2020, and I just knew that the world was going to be shut down for quite a while. This was something that I had been working up to for the past year. I had spent day and night working on it. And although it caused me severe anxiety and stress, it broke my heart to hear this. As the days went on, event after event was canceled. No taking the ACT, no graduation for the seniors, no prom, and so much more. Church would be strictly online along with school for the rest of the year. Every store in our small town was closed along with the whole world. But you already know that story, and I do not need to help you relive it. However, this pandemic will be one that we put into the history books. 2020 was not a year that any of us would like to relive because the situation was far from ideal. But I know that we will all take away something from it. For me, 2020 was going to be a big year. It was my junior year, the time that I was supposed to become educated about college and where to go, to take the ACT to figure out what colleges I could go to, go to my first prom, and so much more. However, I didn't get that. But I feel like I got so much more. I got to spend time with my family. I got to spend time with friends in small and safe environments. I was able to be outside. We got a pandemic puppy. And although the circumstances were not ideal, I was able to visit my family in Minnesota over the summer. My life certainly took a 180, as I'm sure many of ours did. I was stuck in my house, taking classes online, attending Zoom meetings, and watching live recordings of my church services. Life was far from normal. But we, little Cody, Wyoming, didn't even see the worst of it. As the rest of the world was still hunkered down, our little town started to reopen. Masks weren't required in public. Tourist season was started. Graduation parties were commencing. And you were able to go back to work. Whereas in Minnesota, the other side of my family did not leave their house for months. We are so fortunate to live in this little town and not have to live the reality that much of the world did. Of course, like many, I was very fearful for the elderly people in my life, because the last thing that I would ever want is for them to contract this virus and die. So I did my part. I sanitized, I consistently wore my mask, and I tried to stay out of large group settings. As time went on, more and more people around me started to contract the virus, and more families went into quarantine. I still tried to do my part the best I could, but sometimes doing our part won't always be enough. On November 30th, I experienced my first COVID symptom. The next day, I received a positive test. And the following 8 days, I was confined in my room away from my family and taking classes online once again. I had contracted the virus from my old babysitter, who is 75. Despite the pandemic, I tried to visit her as much as possible, taking my precautions, because I believe that no one should be lonely during this time. I'm happy to say that she survived the virus despite her underlying health conditions, and as did I, or else I would not be here with you today. But let me tell you, as a young and healthy person, this virus was nothing to kid about. The day I got out of quarantine, I was lucky enough to perform in my Christmas show with the rest of my dance team. I had my first dance, and it was 6 minutes long, and by the end of it, I felt as though my lungs were collapsing. My heart was racing faster than it ever has, and sometimes that doesn't always go away that very fast. I still have some of those side effects. I still can't smell, I still can't taste, and I have an abnormal heart rate. COVID has affected many of our lives, but I feel so fortunate that we are still able to live our lives as normally as possible compared to others. Sometimes it may feel ridiculous that this virus has taken such a grasp on our lives, but it could be so much worse. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Fiona, for being so open about your situation. And she wasn't the only Simpson that got the virus. And now we go to Dee Dee Fales, who, with her husband, Gary, opened Rimrock Ranch last summer and ran it successfully. And we want to hear about that.
Hi, my name is Dee Dee Fales, and my husband and I own and run Rimrock Ranch, and it's a summer business. We also have a trail shop. So we had multiple businesses that we opened last summer. And both of those businesses require lodging, meals, the ranch transportation, so we were dealing on a lot of different levels with how to handle the virus. Plus, our guests were coming from all over the United States, flying, driving, multiple ways they were getting to the ranch. So when we realized the virus wasn't going away, because like the flu, we kept thinking, oh, it'll be going by the summer, it'll be fine. Our guests started canceling in about April. We lost about 180 guests, but in the meantime, and those people were timid about traveling, so they shouldn't have come. In the meantime, we booked probably 80 or 90 additional people. So we hadn't already summer, probably 20 to 30 guests every week at the ranch. The first thing that our daughter Jessie and I did was sit down, and we came to the conclusion that no motels had been shut down. Restaurants have been shut down, but not motels. So we went straight to the websites of big hotels, motels around the country to see what they were doing to keep their guests safe. And once we did that and started to feel confident, well, if they can do it, we can do it. And so we sat down and went through every activity that we do at the ranch and figured out how to keep our guests and our health safe. We started with the lodging, and we decided, we made a plan of how to clean, we made a chart, we put every single thing that had to be clean and wiped down between each guest. And then we asked weekly if our guests even wanted anyone in their cabin. It's carrying from one cabin to the next when you're going, even though our girls were dressed and in sanitary jackets and everything. The next thing we did was we went through all our meals. And I was multiple times talking to the county health department about how to manage that, and there were guidelines, very exact guidelines about how we had to serve food, manage food. So then we made charts for the kitchen, which were, well, first we made a plan for the kitchen. Everyone had to wear a mask. You didn't go in the kitchen without a mask. Everyone had to have gloves on. Usually the kitchen is quite a gathering place, and we told people that weren't involved in kitchen prep that they had to stay out of the kitchen. So we followed guidelines such as no self-serve, which for us, we have a cookie jar and 100 people here. 100 hands are going in a cookie jar on a daily basis. So we had to individually wrap the cookies and put them in a spot where our help could serve a cookie to a guest. So those are the type, all the little detailed things we did. They couldn't come in and help themselves to a cup of lemonade or tea. They had to ask the girls to do that. And we set that up Sunday night when our guests arrived. We just said, this is what we're doing, this is how we're following. If you have any questions, let us know. But this is why you can't get a cookie, this is why you can't. And as far as dining went, we do family dining, so all the food gets put per family on the table. We do buffets. We had to have a plexiglass screen. No one could touch any of the food, so the girls just stood kind of like Subway, and people walked along and they asked what they wanted, and we handed them their plate and silverware at the end. We had one of the problems we ran into when we set up like the cleaning protocol was we couldn't get any cleaning products. We couldn't get sanitizer. We couldn't get dispensers. And even through Cisco, who's our food supplier, we put orders in April, and in June, a lot of that stuff came, but we had to work around it. And the fire department supplied some of that, and we went in and got those supplies. Eventually that was made available, but initially it was not. We told our health that they had to have their temperatures taken every morning, which Gary did. We had a chart, everyone's name was on it. First thing when they got to work, have their temperature taken. And if they had, we had one case where someone had an infection and ended up with a fever, and we just shuffled her away and put her in her cabin until we found out that she had an infection and it was cleared out. But that worked great. We didn't take any temperatures from our guests. There was a point that it was just, it wasn't really necessary. And we started to realize that what we were doing more than anything was protecting our health. As our guests came, we gave them guidelines, and they didn't always follow it, but our help did. So we had a cleaning protocol 3 times a day. We had a chart, and whoever did the cleaning that day had to initial everything. And it was light switches and doorknobs and tabletops and arms of the chairs and any counter surface that people might put their hands on. The swimming pool, the rails of the swimming pool going into the pool, the tables, the top of the hot tub. I mean, every place that someone would touch, we wiped down 3 times a day. Let's see. So going into this, especially when we heard that 7D and Cross Sabers were not going to open, I felt like, what do they know that we don't know? Are we putting ourselves at risk? Are we doing something that might, turn out badly? But I felt fairly confident that once we set everything up, it would be okay. Just going in with a positive attitude about it. It turned out to be okay. And after each week, I was very nervous the first week, and everything was fine. The second week, I felt a little more relaxed. The third week was, wow, look at this, everyone's getting sick. By the fourth week, we just felt really confident that what we were doing was helping. One of the other things we did was our cowboys had to wear masks when they got on the horse and off the horse. And there was just no ifs, ands, and buts about it. They had to do it, and we watched them until they got into the routine, and once they did, it was just second nature. But we told them they had to do this. Staying open depended on it. That if anyone got sick and we had to shut down, that would be really difficult. And I really had thought about how we were going to manage that, and I sort of had a plan, but it never happened. No one got sick. We had the healthiest summer we had ever had at the ranch. And usually our guests come in and they bring a cold, they bring pink eye, all the things that you end up getting to go around and help. We never had any of that. It was seriously the healthiest summer we ever had. Not a cold, not a sniffle, nothing. And it's not unlike what's happening in the school system. You're having the healthiest year you've ever had. That's what we experienced as well. So what we did really made a difference. And I would say for anyone who has to open now and hasn't done this, that go in it with a positive attitude. Don't be afraid, because it does work. It works to wear a mask and wipe things down. And so we didn't have a whole lot of control over over our guests. And we would say we would like you to wear a mask in the van. And they would not wear masks in the van. So I would say, okay, well, our help will always have a mask on, regardless of whether they were in or not. And we realized that protecting our health was really the #1 thing we were doing. Our guests came and went, and we just assumed they would not come if they were sick, and they didn't. So, and they were so happy to be there. They were happy to be out of their closed-up environments. And we spend the whole day outside at the ranch. Everything's an outdoor activity. So, we were, it was a good summer. It was a really good summer. So, I feel confident about this summer as well. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Dee Dee. That was insightful information, I'm sure, for people who are trying to open back up. Next, we have Sarah Call, who is a teacher at the high school and a coach.
Thank you. Yeah, so in March, when I heard that we weren't going to open, I thought it was actually only going to be for a week at the time. And I thought, well, what are we going to do for a week? But anyway, later on that week, we realized that you better get to the high school and get your supplies, because you're going to be home teaching for a while. So then just trying to figure out how to meet the needs of the kids. I'm a special ed teacher, so working with kids on their goals, and then I'm also a co-teacher in English. So working with that teacher to make sure that those kids are successful. So it was a bit of a challenge, but we figured it out, I also realized that there were no boundaries as far as kids get up late, and the earliest I could get anyone to Zoom with me was 8:30. You know, so I mean, I was up ready to go and doing paperwork and things, but that was typically my first Zoom of the day, and then it was throughout the whole day. And then, but the kids would text me at 10 o'clock at night and ask me, you know, what assignment is this, or what do I need to do for this assignment? And I'm, you know, in bed. So, but there were no boundaries when it was online. And again, we all did, I feel like we all did as well as we could. When we were opening up this fall, I guess I would say I was cautiously optimistic is what I would say. I really thought that within, a week or two, we would be shut down. So, yeah, and I also was just thinking about, well, what is this going to look like? How are we going to arrange the room? How much hand sanitizer do we need? Are the kids going to wear masks? And, you know, I've been really pleasantly surprised at the kids. They've been so compliant. I think they're excited to be at school. Kids know, we all know that kids learn better in school, in person, than online. So, you know, people are doing a great job there with that. One thing that was interesting at the beginning, we had a meeting, we had a special meeting. There were about 14 people in the room before the kids were there. And some had masks on, some didn't have masks on. And after the meeting, it was said, you know what? We need to wear masks because we can't wipe out the entire special education department. We'll have to close school. So I was like, yeah, everybody needs to wear masks. So basically, you know, Fiona and Maggie, you guys do the same thing, but I put my mask on in the car. I walk into high school. I keep it on all day until I walk out. It's just, you know, to have a drink or eat lunch or something. So it's just part of the day. And again, the kids have been really good about it. It's been a little tough when people get sick. We've had quite a few special ed staff sick out with COVID, so we've just had to cover that. But we've made that work. And other things that are different, I'm a soccer coach for Special Olympics. We had a fall season. So we took some athletes and some unified partners to Lander and Casper, took a school suburban, but we're all masked up, you know, so that's just the way it is. You know, if you want to get into suburban, everyone's masked up, and so that's just what we do. And now I was telling Peg, I'm trying to figure out, I'll start the spring swim season, and not exactly sure what that's going to look like yet, but we're going to have one. Yep, it's going to happen. We're just trying to figure that out. So let's see, what else? Oh, meals. Some things are different at the high school. It's kind of what you were talking about on the ranch with meals. The kids in the life skills class, they have a popcorn Friday. Can't have popcorn Friday. I'm a sponsor for Project Unified. We have a monthly luncheon. We had one today. But we can only have one person serve the food, so it gets a little crazy. And of course you have gloves and a mask. The kids are all masked up, and then they spread out to eat. So that's just something that, again, when we were shut down, I was really impressed with the school district, and they kept supplying food even when we were shut down, because there are so many kids that rely on that food. So that was great. As far as advice, you know, what you said, I think that, you know, schools, I mean, businesses can open safely, and I know that, like, I think of Sunlight Sports, and they have their sign on their door, and they have masks there, you know, so, I mean, it can be done. The positive attitude, of course, is absolutely essential. So, yeah, and also talk to some of these people who've done it. And I mean, really, the Peg at the helm, and it sounds like you guys have done a great job with that. So I've seen other people around the country on Facebook say, gosh, Maybe I should move to Wyoming with my kids, because we're open, in person. I think, I heard a number, and I'm not sure about this, but I heard 55% of students nationwide have been online for the past year. My son Jonathan is student teaching right now in Chicago, and it's online, high school English. So it's crazy, and these kids, I feel for them. But, okay, a couple more prompting questions here. One was about stress, how to deal with stress. I'm pretty good about it, but, I could always be better. So I, just exercise and yoga and try to eat healthy. I also keep the words of my very bright 20-year-old daughter, who left me a cute note that said, Mom, let go of the things you have no control over. So she left that for me when she left, and I need to do that, so I appreciate that. And as far as, something I think about with this pandemic, in some ways this might sound kind of strange, but I find it's kind of comforting knowing that we're all in the same boat, worldwide. We are all experiencing the same thing. So that helps me, because I can do this, we can do this. We can all move forward, and I see the light. I've already had my first vaccine. I have my second one tomorrow. So, and I'm just eager for everyone else to have the same thing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
What I did hear the young people say was there was a little anxiety in their world, and I'm sure Superintendent Monteith will address that, because she's at the helm of the ship.
Thank you for this opportunity. I can tell you I could have never imagined in my wildest dreams. I came on as the interim superintendent in late January. By February, we're hearing about COVID reaching the shores in Washington State. And by March 16th, we had shut down, allegedly for 2 weeks, right? And then it became 2 more weeks, and 2 more weeks, and 2 more weeks. Incredible. And I think one of the first things that happened was our administrative team all coming together in we can do this mode of turning around to remote education as quickly as possible. I know we were a week ahead of most school districts in the state in getting remote education started and getting instruction out to our kids. That was a heavy lift, getting materials and supplies to kids, and if you had middle school students and the drive-thrus, and you handed kids books, and all of that happened with gloves and masks and all of those kinds of things. Lots of money spent on disinfectant and PPE and you name it, keeping things clean. And it was just a rolling closure. And every 2 weeks we'd hear from the governor again and Department of Health that schools would remain closed. And as we got closer to the end of the year, it became pretty evident we were going to not open before the end of the school year. So changing things up. And I cannot tell you how amazing our teachers are and our kids. Kids came up with some great ideas for ways to have a graduation that was way, way out of the box. Not anything close to what they might have been used to having, and they just had a blast. I saw kids in the car parade. They get out at the school, and then they run down and get in someone else's car and come through again. So I think I saw a couple of kids 4 or 5 times, and so I think they had a good time. So we've been at this for almost a year, and what an incredible ride it's been. We've worked very closely with our now new best friends in public health here in Park County. They've been amazing. I have appreciated their guidance. Dr. Bulletin is my Dr. Fauci, and he's helped us every step of the way to know to keep things safe. And the Department of Education required that schools put together a reopening plan. So we began actually working on that in May. And it's called the Smart Start, and you can see from my notebook, it was a lot of work. And in retrospect, it wasn't really that smart of a plan, because we had so many things that we just assumed would happen that never did. But we had to have a specific plan for transportation. How were we going to run our buses? We couldn't run buses full. So how are we going to spread kids out? Are we wearing masks? And how are we going to run routes with more buses, fewer kids on routes? So all of that had to be determined. Hand sanitizer on the bus, and they get sanitized every night, and they have foggers that go through those buses and clean the air every night. The other piece was our maintenance and custodial staff, and they have also had a heavy lift because they've done much more deep cleaning, I think, than they ever have. Every surface gets wiped down. They fog with disinfectants, and they have done an amazing job keeping things clean. I've just about washed the skin off my hands. I know the rest of you probably have too, and between that and hand sanitizer, it's been kind of brutal. Same with the kids, and I just have to say the kids have been amazing. It's so, so good. I try to get down to the high school once in a while just to hang out with the kids and some of the really amazing things they're doing, and they're so smart and so articulate, and they so want to be in school, and they have been champions. And I don't know about the rest of you, but you kind of get used to wearing this mask, and it sort of feels weird not to. Actually, I think I look better with this mask. So I'm going to keep wearing it. I think it's a fashion statement. I have seen the cutest masks on little kids. Oh my goodness. Some of those elementary kids are so stinking cute, and they're little animal masks and just cute. Classrooms had to be reconfigured. We had to spread everybody out, and we invested in plexiglass. I wish I had stock of plexiglass, because I'm that and Clorox wipes. And it was amazing. And building principals in, measuring classrooms, and getting desks 6 feet apart, and all of those kinds of things. Food service had to be completely revamped. We served food in trays with snap-on lids, and kids were eating outside a lot when it was still nice, and spreading out, and either that or they have plexiglass dividers, and it's just a different world. But we were able to feed kids and get food out to kids even when we were closed, like Sarah said. The nurses were key to our opening plan. They helped figure out ways to do temp checks as kids were coming in the doors. For several months, we screened every student that came through the doors with temperature checks, and some kids were re-screened then if they had an abnormal, they either spiked high, and kids coming in out of the cold, you gotta let them be in the building for 10 or 15 minutes and have them checked again. So our nurses have been amazing with that. I think Fiona and Maggie talked about how hard it was to be remote, and I just think about those kids across the country that have not been back in person learning for a year, and I can't even imagine. Anxiety and stress, there's been a lot. I've been really worried about our staff, and when we put our plan together, we had tiers of Tier 1 was going to be fully open and business as unusual, with all of our things, devices and things here and there and everywhere. Teachers, they have been able to not only teach in a classroom with students, but also be providing at the same time remote education to students who may be at home, who are quarantined, or actually were sick and could still get online and do those kinds of assignments. So we had to have this plan approved by the Department of Education and also by Public Health. And we have leaned on the guidance we received from the Department of Health and Public Health from day one. And I do believe, just like Dee, that's what's gotten us through. It's been an experience for sure, and schools look very different started our fall season of sports, I was like you, Sarah, I thought, oh, here we go. This will be the true test, and by golly, we're going to be shut down in 2 weeks. And we are coming to the close of our winter sports, which included wrestling. I mean, come on. Who would have ever thought? That was the one I said, no, we're not going to wrestle. Sure enough, we wrestled, and guess what? we made it. So we're really closing in on those culminating events for our winter sports, and we've done pretty well. I know as we've gone along, we've had some issues with kids on teams and their coaches or teachers getting COVID, or then we need to be quarantined and really worried about having to miss some events, but we didn't. And so we've been able to keep going in spite of all of that. I think at one point in time we had, I think our highest count was between 70 and 80 students that were out at any one time. We kept track every day and every week. And that was one of the things we realized about our Smart Start plan that wasn't very smart, is that we were basing our tiers on students being out. In retrospect, that was really pretty silly, because kids, we could have the majority of our kids out, but if our teachers went down, we were in deep trouble. So there was one point in time that I was afraid we might have to shut down Park Mountain Academy because so many of the teachers were sick, and they don't have very many teachers to start with. But that's when we had to pull back and reconfigure, and administrative team meets every week. And for the first few months, that's all we talked about was COVID and how everybody was doing, and are we, how many kids are out, and how is the remote education going. And now we're able to kind of talk about some normal things, like maybe we can have a prom, and maybe it'll look a little different, but I think we can. And our spring sports are going to go forward, and they've all followed through guidance from the High School Activities Association, have all followed these very same things, masks and washing hands. And the one thing that was puzzling to me is that the wrestlers can't shake hands after the match. Go figure. That one I thought was a little odd, but whatever. Anyway, the kids have been very compliant, and I think that's why you see we've been able to do all of these things, because everybody's pitched in, and everybody's so I think that's been one of the silver linings, is that we appreciate so much that we're able to have the kind of education we have, and to be able to continue. And we're a year in, and this week we had one student out, and that's all, and no staff. And we're getting vaccines in the arms of the majority of our staff, from our bus drivers to our certified staff. And I'm like Sarah, I'm beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I just hope it's not a train coming, because it just felt since the get-go like I was about to be run over by a runaway train. I've never in my wildest dreams could have imagined this, but it's been an interesting thing to keep everybody so well. One of our pediatricians said we have 60% fewer patients now than we did over a year ago. He said, I'm really happy for the kids to be well, but we're dying here. We're losing money left and right. So we're actually thinking some of the things we had in place we need to continue, because we have been able to keep kids pretty well. So anyway, we're just super grateful for the community support, for our kids and our parents who've been so diligent in helping us keep our schools open, and staff, from our bus drivers to our custodians, our building principals, our teachers, paras, everybody in between. So I would just say this is a great community. We've done really well, and everybody, knock on wood, is in pretty good shape right now. So very grateful for that.
I just want to say say one of the best things that's ever happened to Cody was peg my teeth. May I open this up to questions from anybody? Do you see the virus going away soon in the schools? Well, thank you all so much. And know that you're on Facebook and you're famous now.
You were all five amazing.
Yes.
I mean, it distracted me from eating, for heaven's sake.